There's just a little bit of salt water coming out of my eyes, and I'm not really experienced with like what that is or what you call it or anything, but we're gonna move past it real quick. That was really great.
Are you crying?
I'm not familiar with the term, but Logan, that was amazing. Let me be a real jerk.
Go ahead
and ask the flip side of that. Is it hard, Lance, for you to challenge people because of that mentality, like that lunch mentality of like, hey, if you make it, that's fine, but if you don't, like that's also fine.
I'm gonna answer for him.
Oh yeah. Again, you're not allowed to talk.
I'm trying to understand the rules of the game you're playing.
So, do you want to just answer it, Lance? It's you. I'm
trying to make sure I understand the question. Like,
do you find it hard to motivate people because? Tell me if I'm wrong. Do you find it hard to motivate people into, like following you or believing what you believe because you respect, like, people's opinion and time so much?
welcome to These Are Words, where we share stories and personal experiences. This week, we are wrapping up Season 1 by starting Season 2 by taking a look back at our favorite and most hilarious moments from this previous season. Here we go.
This clip that we're about to hear is from our very first episode. This is where Lance is telling Logan and I his idea for a joke that he thinks is hilarious. And I won't spoil it for you if you haven't heard it. Here we go.
Oh, it's okay.
All right, so here it is. So we're talking about that, right? And then we were talking about hell. And this is what I think is like the funniest thing I've ever heard. This has taken way too long to set up. It's not even going to be funny now, but I think that it is hilarious to think about the scenario in which the very first person went to hell.
Oh gosh.
Because he was there by himself. Right? Can you imagine the confusion? And here's how I see it. I see a guy like falling down a chute, right into just an eternal lake of sulfur, fire, and damnation, and having no idea why he's there. Because nobody told him otherwise. And what if he's there for like 20 years by himself? I know, it's only funny to me.
I mean, first of all, I can't look you in the eyes right now.
I don't think it makes sense.
Who was the first person to go to hell?
It's outside of time.
Somebody had to be. No, in my joke, it's bound by time. Okay, I think it's funny to imagine the first person to go to hell, to get there, and just be like, "Oh gosh, what is this?"
They would say "gosh," not God.
Well, at that point, he could say whatever.
They can't even say God in hell.
There are too many. I think there are too many variables, especially when you think about how everyone. By the way, Pod Racers is brought to you by Rob Bell. He has some views of hell that are crazy compared to what I grew up learning about hell, which was only
that was a kind way to put
sulfur. Thank you. Thank him. Whatever. Thank God. Sulfur, fire, and damnation. And then there's this view that God is present there and it's his wrath for eternity.
Oh, yeah.
So, okay, either way, scenario sucks. And if we're supposed to be rating this on like a 1 to 10 scale of is it funny to us personally, I'm going to give it like a 4.
Bro, I'm going even lower.
It makes me very uncomfortable.
It doesn't even make me uncomfortable.
It makes me so uncomfortable the amount of laughter you spent in this room today on that. And I can't imagine how much you laughed at it yesterday.
It was obscene, I promise.
With 4 or 5 other people horrified, staring at you like, what on earth?
Can you just... So... Here's how I imagine it, though. So guy number 2 shows up after guy number 1's been stuck in hell for whoever knows how long.
Oh, God.
And it's I like to imagine them having a conversation like guys in jail, just like, what'd you do to get here, But the first guy has no idea why he's in hell because he doesn't know what hell is because nobody could tell him. So the guy number 2 shows up and is just like, oh, this is hell. And then guy number 1's like, ah, man, I was wrong about all this. And then he spends the rest of his life hating himself, and there's nothing he can do about it. I took it really dark.
That is the worst joke. If you ever did a set and you told that joke, even if you...
This podcast is brought to you by my aspirations to be a stand-up comedian and then them being shot down by my friends.
You would flop so hard.
I told you I'm not a comedian. I just think it's a funny concept. If a professional comedian took that information from me, they could make it a joke.
Not a chance. If they got rid of all the information that you and did something else,
anything else,
then it would be a funny joke.
Whatever. I hate you guys.
Oh my gosh.
That was our first episode when Lance tried to sell us on his joke
There's
about hell.
so much to talk about within that one clip because so much happened.
Go ahead. What?
First of all, sound quality.
Terrible.
So everybody's welcome that Asher is a wizard and made it better.
I wasn't back then. I was a witch back then.
Oh, that's right.
No, yeah.
And then also, I'm so happy that this is gone.
Yeah.
But saying this podcast is brought to you by, and then followed by literally anything. In the first few episodes, it happened so much, and you can hear me in the episodes get mad at it because it bothered me.
Because it's a terrible way to podcast.
Annoying. I think that we were I don't know, we didn't know what we were doing.
Oh, absolutely not. Do we now? I think we do now. A little bit.
We did. I think we know a little bit more.
Yeah.
But
So, Lance, throughout listening to all of that, you guffawed just as much as in the episode with better sound quality. Yeah. Thankfully to everyone.
I just still think it's just as hilarious today as it was the day I first thought about it.
so that wasn't even brought up to you. You just thought about it.
I was actually trying to remember the scenario when I first thought about it, and all I remember is that it happened at work. I was at Faith Promise, and I don't remember how it got brought up. I just remember discovering the thought of what it was like to be the first person to go to hell.
Yeah, but where did you discover that thought?
I don't remember. I don't remember what was being talked about or how we got there. And then I just remember it was around the time we were starting the podcast, and I was like, this will be really funny to talk about with Asher and Logan. And it didn't go the way I thought.
It just made me really sad.
I still think it's a hilarious premise for a joke. I stand by that.
I do not.
I think the funnier thing, I can't remember if we actually talked about it on that episode, on episode 1, but we discussed at some point if Satan was like Michael Scott from The Office. Do you remember that?
I think it's the same episode.
It is in there.
But I don't remember that part. I just remember telling that I thought that he looked like him from Powerpuff Girls.
Yeah. Gosh, that's true.
And he just but he's also not omnipresent. So, but there's no relief. So it just always gets worse and worse. So it just comes around every once in a while and makes it a little bit worse.
Right.
But he also looks ridiculous. So what did you say about Michael Scott? Where he thinks he's hilarious or something?
Yeah,
that?
he's just this boss guy that's completely not self-aware and thinks that he's funny and thinks that everyone enjoys his jokes. And just goes around hell.
Makes
and
hell
that's
so bad.
That's what makes hell. There's no sulfur, fire, brimstone, or anything. It's just this horrible leader of hell who's terrible at making jokes.
The last thing I wanted to talk about from that clip was, I don't know if we ever addressed it, but whenever we initially started the podcast, we wanted, and by we I mean Asher and I, wanted to name it Pod Racers.
Yes.
To the point that we were named Pod Racers on the first episode.
Yep.
And Lance threw a fit and cried and threatened to not only quit the podcast.
No, here's what happened.
But break up with his then girlfriend.
Gosh, yeah, that's
None
right.
of that's true. we hadn't decided on the name yet, but you guys really wanted Pod Racers, and I really still do hate that name.
But why?
But we were decided to go ahead and record the few episodes without deciding on the name, and you guys just threw Pod Racers in there thinking you could just get away with it. But I'm having the last laugh because here we are now,
I guess
a
you
year
are.
later with a better name.
No, but I also came up with the name, so I don't feel so hurt.
You didn't come up with the name on purpose, though, so like you can't take full credit. You
No, I totally
Here's the thing,
can because
though.
it was
Both of
completely
you-
mine. But I was just being
You just
mean.
happened to say these are words in context with conversation, and we all decided, hey, that's actually a pretty funny name.
Yeah. So what was happening? Sorry, Asher, I know you're about to say something, but what was happening was we were texting each other and some dumb names were being thrown out. So I sent back some just ridiculous words, and then like it was like, oh, we could name it this, this, or this. And I was like, these are words, like being very sarcastic,
Right,
not
right.
offering these are words. And then both of you guys were like, maybe we should name it that.
And here we are,
And here we are.
37 episodes in.
That's
I
right.
just feel like some Star Wars loving person is going to start a podcast named Pod Racers, and they couldn't have done that if we had taken the name from them so cruelly.
That's why you didn't want it?
I don't think it makes sense to have a podcast called Pod Racers if we don't talk about Star Wars.
We're podcasting as fast as we can.
That's not even true.
It's just funny that to me, because we've talked about Enneagram recently on the podcast in our most recent episodes, you did two very un-Enneagram 9 things. You told a joke about hell and laughed maniacally about how funny it was.
How is that not 9?
It just doesn't seem like the peacemaker, like, I don't know, go with the
Do
flow
you think
mentality.
that-
I don't know.
do you
It
think
just
that-
feels so awful to me.
Do you think that Lance's 9 type is non-confrontational to the point that like he won't find those things funny? Because, and I don't mean to make this an Enneagram podcast by any
No,
means,
well-
because it happens every time.
That's true. We'll switch over.
Right at the beginning. Here we go.
But I mean,
There's a darkness to the 9, but it's constantly being suppressed. I think that's probably why I think things like that are funny.
Yeah, it's constantly being suppressed until episode 1 of Pod Racers, aka These Are Words, where you tell horrible jokes.
I also think it's funny because I don't think that it's true. Like I don't really think that was a real scenario.
Well, neither do we, but you think it's funny.
I do think it's funny.
Do you think it would be funny if it was true?
No.
Oh, okay. I feel better now. That's
Okay.
all I needed closure from episode 1 that you
A
didn't
year-
actually think that
a
was
year later.
God.
That's really
all right. Well, any other closing thoughts? Episode 1 or the infamous hell joke?
I actually I just think it's funny that like it's stuck with us, like because we were thinking about our favorite moments from the past year's worth of podcasts,
And we all thought that one.
We all were like, yeah, the hell joke is pretty like memorable, and it was from the
Absolutely.
very first episode.
And also, right after that, you followed up with your plan of
How to make my child have
perfect-
perfect pitch.
yeah, and which is just
I still stand by it. I'm gonna try it. I have nothing to lose.
I hope he's insane.
So it's a he. All right.
Yeah,
Does that change things?
if it's a girl,
Just
then
needed to know.
you're mean if you do that to a girl. All right.
All right. Well, let's get to the second clip is from episode 2, and it has to do with the Publishers Clearinghouse. So here we go.
Yes.
Okay, I do have one. I believed, and it was partly because my grandmother told me that she could actually win the Publishers Clearinghouse sweepstakes. I just thought of this. And she told me, like, we're going to buy an island. Like, I vividly remember thinking that she could win, and it's like millions of dollars. And we had seen the commercials, and she got the mail in the mail. You remember mail?
Yeah.
And I planned out. I was probably like 5 or 6 years old, and I planned out all of the video games I was gonna buy with that money. That's all I remember.
Does she still like enter? Like she's still like waiting on it?
No, she's 89 years old and so lucid and so funny.
Yeah.
And no, there's no way she ever believed it.
My
It was
mom
just
and my
something to
grandma
do.
both still like enter it.
Really?
Yeah, like it's still a thing in my family.
I'm convinced. I don't
I'm
think
not-
she.
I feel
I'm
like
not
at this
entirely
point
sure what it
we
is.
deserve it because like we've stuck
Sure.
in there so long.
What is it?
So it's like this sweepstakes, and they have like different things that you can win. And like, there's one where like you can win like
$1 billion.
$5,000 a week for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And you can pass it in your will. So basically, they're just like making people rich for no reason, and it's awesome. But like, your chances of winning are so slim, you know. And they do drawings like every month or so.
Yeah.
Where's this money coming from?
It's like a secret lottery, and I don't know.
That's a great question.
I don't even believe it's real anymore because I remember being a teenager and like I hadn't talked about it with Mama in years, but I was like, "Wait, we were never gonna win that. I was never gonna buy all the Super Nintendo video games."
Well, there you go. Publishers Clearinghouse. What do you think?
Over this past weekend, what day is today? It's Wednesday. We're recording on a Wednesday. Yeah. So this past weekend, my mom and my grandma were both talking about the Publishers Clearinghouse and how bummed they were that it didn't come.
Like legitimately bummed. Like they've been expecting it every time.
Dude, for years, man.
How often does it happen?
There's different ones that you can win, and they happen at like different frequencies. So I don't know. There's like one that happens like once a month. Or there's another that's like once a week, or there's like a big like once a year one, I think. Or
That's crazy, man.
dude, there.
Man,
I can't. I have nothing to gain by thinking that they're dumb for trying. You know what I'm
No.
saying? Like all I can do is just lean into it.
Does it
I
cost
hope
money?
we win.
I can't anymore
No.
because like talk about a loss of innocence for me. Like, oh yeah, that whole Publishers Clearinghouse thing, that will never happen. Never ever.
It's such a one thing to
I don't-
be like.
There's no way it actually exists. Like, I don't believe anyone's ever actually won it. And there's probably some loophole where like, you
They
know,
can get out of it immediately.
yeah, like you can't actually pass it along in your will. I don't know. If anyone knows someone who's won the Publishers Clearinghouse, please let us know. We want to
Yes.
talk to them.
Absolutely. I don't really have much to say on it because I think I know just as little about it now as I did in that clip a
Sure.
year ago. However, honorable mention to the second episode. Back whenever we would open our episodes with "Welcome to These Are Words," the podcast about sports, spirituality, and
City of Knoxville.
City of Knoxville.
Yeah.
And then we would also put in like whatever we talked about because we recorded the intro at the end.
Yeah.
After we recorded.
Right, right.
And so that one is Beatitudes, where Lance's terrible pun happened about the
Don't give him that much credit. It wasn't a pun. It's just a stupid way to say it. It wasn't like saying, hey, be at it, dudes. Like Jesus is talking to the disciples and telling them like, hey, go into the world and be at it.
No.
He just said it dumb.
What was it, Lance?
No, it's the Beatitudes is the real word.
Yeah.
It's like
I know that.
it's attitudes of being, Beatitudes. But I said Beatitudes.
And Jesus was surfing on a surfboard.
That's right, hanging 10 with his 12 disciples.
It's disgusting.
Get it? It's a surfing term.
So I've blotted it out in such a way that I forgot that any of that happened. And I'm glad. I hope my mind blots it out again.
Any time that like I've ever done something funny or something that someone else would consider funny, I usually didn't come up with it by myself. And I have no shame in admitting that because I think if you can retell a joke and it's still funny, that there's something to that.
Who came up with that?
That's what I'm getting to. I actually came up with that one. That's why I feel so
okay.
good about it.
Yeah, because I thought that
I actually
that was like,
came up with it on
that
the
was
spot.
yeah, organic, like on the spot. I really liked that, but didn't want to tell you that.
You mean you've held on to that for an entire year? You didn't want to tell Lance that you liked it?
Yeah, I didn't want to tell him.
That's beautiful.
If we never recorded this episode, I would have never told him.
I can't explain to you guys how much I still believe that you can win the Publishers Clearinghouse, Asher.
Me?
Yeah, just because of all of this. Like, I hope it happens.
I don't enter it. Like I'll call Mama tomorrow and see if she still does it or something.
You should ask. Yeah.
So
See,
you
I
think
don't-
it would be incredibly ironic for someone who is just like, this will never happen, for it to happen to them?
I think that's the person that would win. Yeah.
You all would never see me again. I just want you to know.
Why not?
Because I'd be on the island playing Super Nintendo games like I planned on when I was like 6.
It makes sense.
I don't know if she ever even entered it intentionally, or she might have just been getting mail to enter it. Like,
Yeah, she
I
may
don't
have
know.
never even actually done it.
That's
Man.
really funny though. That she's the ultimate troll. She's the OG right there.
So this next one, our Judd Apatow, as we call him, the ultimate producer, Joe Collins came on the podcast. What episode number was that?
It was episode 8.
Man, it feels so much later than 8.
Here's the thing too, like the sound quality was bad on 1 and 2.
We were in a different room.
and 3 and 4 and 5 and most
6
of the
and
teens.
37.
This one is worse because we didn't know how to mic 4 people. So
Yeah, we had never done it before. He was our first guest, right?
you get a really nice ambiance of my dining room.
Yeah, that just goes back to we were still
Yeah.
figuring
Who
everything
knows?
out.
Who knows?
But
Do you want to set it up at all or just go ahead and play it?
I was going to step up just a bit.
Go for it.
So Joe is a big fan of WWE, which
Just wrestling in general, all of it.
okay, more than WWE.
Because
Yeah,
remember,
luchadors.
he mentions like
Yeah.
Japanese wrestling. Like,
Yeah.
he had that T-shirt with the Japanese wrestler on it. Like, all kinds of crazy stuff happened.
Right, and he explains why in the most beautiful, articulate way.
I wasn't ready for this.
No, not at all. And like the stigma behind wrestling is like redneck and you're
Yep.
not into it. Like it's so dumb and it's fake. And Joe bypasses all of that and says, I understand that it's not real, but it's not about that.
Wow.
So play
Right.
it. It's so cool. I never watched it after it, but I thought about it.
All right. Here we go. Clip from episode 8.
Whenever you talk about being a fan of professional wrestling, there's a couple of responses. The most common one is, you know it's fake, right?
Guilty.
To which my response is, really? No, it's no. Like, nobody thinks that guy, The Undertaker, who you mentioned, is actually
From
like
hell?
undead.
Right.
Nobody thinks that, no, we're good. We know this is fake. Guess what? So is everything else. Game of Thrones is fake. Did you know that?
Hot take.
Well, okay.
So,
Processing.
yeah. So let's get that out of the way.
Yeah.
I don't care. I don't care that it's fake.
Right.
It doesn't
fine.
matter. It's just
It's,
I don't.
it's understood.
It's not an athletic competition.
Right. Although some of those guys are in.
I was
No,
going to say.
listen.
incredible shape.
My
I said it's
goodness.
not an athletic competition. It's an athletic exhibition.
Ooh, there you go.
Okay.
Can you explain that though?
Yeah.
I said there you go, like I understood.
So if you watch
not.
a pro wrestling match, if it's Monday night and
Oh.
it's 8:00 and you turn on your television to the USA Network to watch some Monday Night Raw, what you're going to see in a match is two athletes who are telling a story together using their bodies, using their words, possibly. These are some words. They might say some words.
These are words.
we're not the only people that use words. We don't. Yeah.
What it essentially is, more than anything, is live theater.
Yeah.
Did I just blow your mind? Did I actually just blow your
really
mind?
spoke to me.
This whole explanation so far is the most poetic.
Honestly, to me, when pro wrestling is at its absolute best, it's Shakespeare. It's good versus evil. It's two people telling you a story.
I don't know about Spirit, but this is shaking me up.
Good God.
He
So-
is, isn't he? Again. Come on.
So
You had essentially the same reaction to.
I literally
on the
did.
clip, he said, "Good God," and then you just now you said, "Jesus."
Dude, your jokes, man.
You're like a Monty Python movie.
That's the greatest compliment. Thank you.
So
I forgot we were listening to a clip. Like I was listening, like that was the first time he was explaining it. Like that's how good that was.
You mean just now today?
Yeah, just now.
that's
Joe
really funny.
is like, just what a beautiful person. He loves wrestling in a way that can convince anyone that they should give it a shot.
Yeah.
And that is just amazing.
But that's what it like impresses me the most, that he is so into the story. Like
Yeah.
the story of it is the reason why. Like
Right.
if he just likes the fact that like there's fighting or wrestling, I guess, involved, but like it's just the byproduct to the story.
Yeah, there's character development,
There's
there's plot.
A narrative
Yeah.
to it. Yeah.
I honestly didn't really know that to the fullest extent. For some strange reason, I think I might have mentioned this when we were recording that podcast. When I was in high school, like there was like a long stretch of time where like routinely I would watch Monday Night Raw, like every night, every Monday.
Every night you'd watch Monday Night
Yeah,
Raw.
every Monday, every night. I would always watch it.
It's the same
But
episode over and over.
I didn't watch it long enough to know that there was like a story going on that was like long.
See, I didn't either.
I thought it was just characters that I was supposed to just kind of like know their backstory.
I watched it before there was WWE. There was WCW,
Yeah.
WWF,
Right.
and NWO.
NWO was a part of WCW though.
Yeah. See, I didn't even know that. I didn't
That
care.
was the group
Like,
with Ice Cube.
shut your mouth.
The rappers,
Shut your mouth.
That's the NWA.
straight out of Compton.
NWO is
God
New
bless
World
us.
Order, and it was like a group of wrestlers. And Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a group of wrestlers like within the WCW that like they like always teamed up. They were like always together, and if one of their guys like was getting beat, another one from the NWO would come out and like
That's called Royal Rumble,
maybe.
where they all fought. That was my favorite way to
Yeah,
play the
yeah,
video game, because you didn't ever lose. You just got to be the next guy that came in the ring. Because I lost a lot.
It happens.
Yeah, I really appreciate explanations like that. I can appreciate someone's like fandom.
Oh yeah,
for something like that.
I want Joe to do his own podcast and just explain things the way he sees them. As you know, the Enneagram 4 thing is part of it. Like,
He's mentioned to me before about doing a podcast, and but it wasn't that. It was something more specific. But he would be incredible at whatever podcast he did.
Yeah,
maybe he needs a one to push him a little bit.
There you go.
or push him away from it just to see if he'll do it anyways.
I think it's funny that we invited Joe to be on the podcast, not just because we're friends with him and we enjoy talking to him, but like we had planned to talk about, and we did, what it's like to be a creative person that struggles with anxiety and depression, which is a super heavy topic.
And
but we spent 40 minutes on wrestling.
Yeah.
And I don't regret it.
Yeah, that
was
episode was
amazing.
one of our longest.
It-
but
I think it actually was.
I think it is 100% worth listening to. If
Yeah.
you've not
it's,
listened to
it's
it, go
so
back.
great.
Yeah, sorry for the sound quality again, but the subject matter in that one was just great. And it
Yeah.
was, Lance, it was specifically, in Logan too, I'm not discluding you, but it was specifically like a creative person in ministry. And I thought we started that way, and we just happened to talk about the fact that like depression creeps in
Totally.
no matter what, you know, because it was kind of a church thing that we were talking about. Like working in a church doesn't mean you have some like Mario star power that excludes you from being depressed.
Exactly,
You know,
yeah.
it's kind of maybe the opposite.
Yeah.
Like
And
it's
then we
more
also
likely
talked
to
about,
creep in.
Like being more open to talking about that, because right now so often it's like, hey, no.
Yeah,
Depression's not welcome
right,
here.
right.
Alcoholic, come on. Deal with drugs, come on. Don't talk about you being depressed.
Yeah.
And so Joe had some really good things to say about it.
Gosh, I want to go back and listen to that whole episode again because it was just so fun.
I
listen
do.
to.
Yeah, I do because it really was fun, but I just don't because it sounds so terrible.
So
I can get over the sound quality.
do you guys want to set up the next one?
Yeah, what's
Yeah,
the next
let's
one?
do it. I really liked this episode too, and we took it in a million different directions. This was when this episode 15. We had a special guest named Paul Moody on the podcast, and he correct me if I'm wrong. Definitely does a food truck in Knoxville called Finny Bees. Is it also a restaurant?
So it is.
I'm a little confused
Well,
on.
Lance is shaking his head.
And
It
I
is
know-
not first and foremost a food truck.
Okay,
It
it's more of
is
an
like
organization.
it's a mobile kitchen.
Yeah,
His main thing that he does through Finny Bees is like events.
like catering, right? Yeah,
and
yeah.
like high end like stuff, and then like different events where he'll like set up whatever. Like he did a party for the Farragut campus at Faith Promise a couple weekends ago, but then he also does a food truck as well. But I think that something that you brought up already about us kind of jumping everywhere with this episode is a perfect representation of who Paul is. And
100%.
Wait, how do you mean?
So I mean, like Paul, and I mean this in like the best way possible. I can have a 5-minute conversation with Paul and talk about 20 different things, and also feel like we've completely covered all topics.
Yeah.
Hold on for a second. I love that you said that because I saw him today and I texted you guys, and
Yeah.
that's what happened. Like I felt like we packed so much into one conversation, and I
Yeah.
loved it because I was right there with him, and then
Yeah.
it was like he was like, "All right, I'm gonna get back to work," and I was like, "Okay, I'll see you."
Yeah, he's great, awesome.
And he let's set this up just a little bit more because he made food for us. It was some
my gosh.
something.
No, okay. So it was a sweet tea brine for butter or
Sweet tea, buttermilk, brined, fried chicken, biscuit.
There are 25 steps, I think he said, to make this.
and it took like 24 hours.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
And,
just to make the biscuit.
Yeah, there and it was like some kind of like honey molasses
Yeah,
butter
something.
of some sort.
And it was whatever it
dear
was.
God,
It was
so
amazing.
good.
And we all had a lot, but on top of that, we're eating while we're recording. So if you hear the mouth noises,
Amateurs.
that's Lance.
For some reason, I'm getting blamed for this, and I can't say it wasn't me, but I also like can't say for sure that it was only me because we were all eating. So
That's true. I think I ate off the mic and you ate the mic.
right, yeah, you didn't. You definitely didn't do anything wrong.
Never.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I really appreciate that.
Yeah, it was definitely for sure me.
That's all I want in life is to not be defective.
Congrats.
This is an
You didn't-
Enneagram
you
podcast
didn't get your
now.
mouth
I know
noises
it. I
on the
know.
podcast.
Sorry. I'm sorry. We're just in it. We're just in it.
All right, so here's Paul.
And we're back. Paul, where do you think the Knicks are going to finish in the playoffs? And then
Well,
we'll
now
talk
that
about
I see the
Jesus.
Bucks are part of the East, I'm not really sure. So
the Bucks are playing great.
they'll finish ahead of Boston.
Whoa, the Knicks?
Ahead of Boston.
Oh, good lord!
That is my bold prediction.
It's a
Do you
bold
think that Kyrie's going to get hurt?
He's going to get something. So I really do. Well, but you got to remember all the core players around him are getting hurt. So even if it's Kyrie, I mean, even if it's just Kyrie, they're going to finish they're going to finish 8th probably.
Old.
Just letting you know.
I know this sounds totally crazy, but that's like verbatim what I was thinking was going to happen.
Nice.
That's crazy. That happens so much on our sports section of the podcast.
Here you go. I will just go ahead and give you 1, 2, 3, and 4. I think the Bucks are going to come out as the number 1 team in the East. The Cavs are going to be number 2. The Raptors 3. The rest of them are horrible.
You know what I love about the Cavs, though, for real? Like, actually, for real, the space below the back of their knee down to their heel. That's the best part of the Cavs.
So the Achilles tendon.
Crap.
Just making sure that that's,
Let me go back
that's
to
there.
anatomy.
Yeah,
That's part of it, I think.
maybe.
Yeah.
I got the Knicks finishing 6th
Ahead of Boston.
ahead of Boston.
I will eat a shoe on this podcast.
Hold him to
It's the
it.
second time this week I've challenged somebody to eating a shoe. I should probably quit while I'm ahead. But
Paul can cook it. I'm sure. I'm
so
sure
can you
make
brine it in the
taste
same
good.
thing you brine this chicken in?
I can brine anything in that.
Even a shoe. Well, you heard it here first, folks. The Knicks are going to go 6th in the East above the Boston Celtics.
I just love his confidence that he said, I could brine anything.
But he had just as much confidence in his NBA picks, which he didn't get one right, in just as much confidence in that as he did brining a shoe.
Yep.
You know, I understand why we stopped doing sports as a segment on this podcast. Excuse me. I burped. I'm sorry. But those picks are just so bad. I'm so glad that happened. Just so we're all clear. So he had the Bucks number 1. He had the Cavs number 2, the Raptors number 3, and who's the 4th team?
Knicks? No, Knicks were
He had the Knicks 6th.
sixth place. Yeah.
And Boston was in 8th. Who did he say that 4th team was?
It was. I don't remember.
It doesn't matter. Either way, the Celtics finished 1st without Kyrie. He was hurt, and they made it all the way to the conference finals. Sorry,
finished
they were second.
second.
The Raptors finished 1st, but they're so bad I'd forget. They're so bad that they can have the best record in the East and still just get absolutely demolished in the playoffs and swept by the same team 2-3 years in a row. So bad. So the Raptors were 1, Celtics were 2. Who was it that came in? It was a team that was kind of unusual that ended up coming
it was
in
the
third.
76ers.
Yeah, the 76ers came in 3rd. Cleveland was 4th, which was a miracle in its own right.
Yeah.
Even with the best player in the world on their team. And yeah, I was so confident that I was willing to risk eating a shoe because that's how much I knew that I was right, and I was right.
I just want you to know that, like, I'm sick of you talking about sports right now, and it's only been about 45 to 60 seconds or something. But let me turn this around for you. That's how much I appreciate you, Lance.
Oh, thanks.
The fact that you would give up talking about sports for giving up, or you would give up talking about sports on the podcast for talking about something that all three of us can, like, you know, eloquently and intelligently speak about.
Well,
I really
I'm for
appreciate
the greater good, man.
I really appreciate that.
If you listen to the podcast, whenever we did have segments, Lance would participate in about all of them.
Uh-huh.
I would participate in all of them most of the time, but only like 0.5% of the time would Asher participate.
You mean
That's
sports
not
specifically,
true.
In the
right?
sports.
Yeah.
Oh
Yes.
yeah, sports. I was
He-
like you're talking about the whole show. I
No,
was like,
no,
no, that's not.
It just whenever we would switch to sports and Lance would say Sports Zone, Asher would just disappear.
Should I say it?
No.
Just for old time's sake.
for old time's sake. Just get off the mic a little bit or I'll kill you.
Can somebody ask me where we're going?
Hey, where are we going next, Lance?
To the sports zone. Ba-ba-da-dow.
I was wondering if you're gonna do that.
I didn't forget. What was the other segment transition?
Sports
Spirituality.
sector.
Spirituality.
Oh gosh, that sounds so bad. Cut it. End it.
I'll cut it. Don't worry.
Dude, I know because I know Paul will hear this because he's a true fan. We all three love you so much. I consider you an honorary host of These Are Words, and the Knicks will not soon finish ahead of Boston in the East. Not soon. Maybe someday.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Okay. I'm breaking news. I am introing the next segment. of this episode. Let me pull up my notes like
Man,
a real news anchor.
This is back to the early days of the podcast.
We're reverting, listening to all this old stuff. Okay, so what episode is this one from? I don't know the number.
It's episode 25 is the next clip.
So we jumped a good portion.
Yeah.
I think we had a dark age, except we had an episode with a professional tennis player, and we probably should have included some of that. Maybe we'll do an extra thing for some of our true fans that give us extra money or something. But
There we go.
yeah,
His name was Hunter Reese. He's actually one of my groomsmen. He is
one of the greatest people I've ever met.
he's pretty cool.
It's awesome.
But just real quick to explain the dark ages, it was kind of when we were in between, like, okay, what should we really do with this podcast? And since this is the start of season 2, I think it bears mentioning that we have totally shifted from a podcast about sports, spirituality in the city of Knoxville to one where we really share just relatable stories and things that we think are funny and life experiences that you can probably relate to, or just, say that we're idiots or something.
I think you
Laugh
said
at
this
us.
on the last episode before this one, but you said this has been great therapy for me to talk about. And I was like, that's kind of what this podcast turned into.
The past 6 or 7 episodes, great therapy for me. Like, I feel a little changed as a person.
It's good. I hopefully by us having these conversations and sharing these stories, we're encouraging others to do the same because I think it's good for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And we want you to share those with us, by the way. We love
Please
that.
do. Please do.
But I think a big shift happened here in episode 25. So please take it away, Lance.
So we talked about our Myers-Briggs personality assessments, and if you're not familiar, it's an online test, so take it with a grain of salt, but it's basically an assessment to determine your personality. So there's 4 letters, and there's 8 letters. You can be 4 or the other 4, and you can mix and match those to create different personality types or archetypes. And we discussed ours and how they related to each other. I am an ESFJ, which I now know is the most common personality type, according to Myers-Briggs. So I'm not special, which is good. That's really great. It's a great feeling to know that I'm not special. And
At least you're not taking it hard.
Yeah, no, I'm good. I'm good. So I'm like a golden retriever, a human being. I love everybody. I love everything, and I thrive on social status. Not in like an egomaniacal way, but just like I want everybody to like me kind of way. And that's what that means. What were your all's?
Mine was ENFJ.
Actually,
ENFJ.
I'm going to have to look. Hang on.
I'm
Always
were-
forget.
ENFP, I'm pretty sure.
You were ENFP.
We were very closely tied.
Yeah, we're all 3
Which
very
should've-
closely tied.
It really should have been like a foreshadowing
Yeah.
of what was to
Of
come
our-
for
yeah.
like
Yeah.
us finding out how
If you
much
think
we're
the
alike.
if you
Right.
think the Myers Briggs is interesting, just hold on to your pants when you get to the Enneagram because it's crazy. But anyways, I'm afraid I'm talking too long. But yeah, so this episode we talked about our types and how they related to each other, and it began a wonderful journey of therapy for the 3 of us.
I love it. Here we go.
you were so like passive about everything, not to a fault at all, but like it's seriously whatever. Like 95% of the time, it's just whatever.
But
so I think that's where that's pouring over.
But you mean genuinely? Like,
yeah, like he like genuinely like if after this you're like, hey, do you want to go get lunch? And either way, you're going to get lunch. If
Yeah.
I'm there or not, you're still gonna have a great time.
Totally.
That's what I'm saying. It's like it's just whatever. In like, I don't think that that's a problem by any means. Sometimes I wish I could be that way. Be like just so like, nah. Like, and it's not because it's not a big deal, but it's just because you take everything like in stride so well. I think it's a good thing.
It's working out so far. I think that I am passive in a lot of ways, but in other ways, like I also do feel like a responsibility to have like developed opinions on things. So when people ask, I can talk about it.
Right.
And I love talking about things.
Yeah, I don't think you're actually passive about your opinions. I think you're passive about like your
Social situation.
Totally. That's
Yeah.
what, but I just want to make that distinction that like I'm not going to avoid confrontation and be like a confirmation bias kind of person. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not just going to agree with whomever I'm around. I'm willing to have a conversation
Yeah.
about something if I disagree.
And
with
you'll
somebody.
stand your ground too,
Yeah.
which I respect. But
But at the end of the day,
it's-
I've still never met somebody that I'm not friends with. You know?
Yeah, that's what's so weird. And I think that like 16 personalities is really cool. And I
Yeah.
think it can like nail somebody or like quotations around that, like
Yeah.
nail somebody.
Or get you close.
But
Yeah.
I think the best it can do is get you close
Right.
because there's always, we have the same one. Okay.
Or no.
So I want to, first of all, if you couldn't tell, we were talking about Lance. We were talking about our like personality types. And I was talking about how Lance is from how I perceive him. And I want to go back and I stand by everything I said by like you just take it in stride, like in whatever. But I think something that I left out that is like such a huge part of you is how like passionate you are about the things you care about. I think I left that out and not meaning to. I just think I maybe was talking about like a different part of you. Actually, I know I was, but like the things that you like are very passionate about, like it just exudes out of you. And I was going to say oddly enough, but it's not a bad thing. But like the thing that I think you are most passionate about, or I'll list a couple, are people coming to meet Christ, which is just like watching you care about that in such a way. Like if you think Lance, if you know Lance personally or like through the podcast or whatever, and you hear him talk about things he cares about, it doesn't hold a candle to how much you want people to know Christ. And it's like absolutely admirable. Like I love it. And then behind that is like how much, because I've seen you like, you know, like through the years and face different things and like how much you like love your wife. It's just beyond like explaining. And
This is great.
and so I think I just think that I left that out whenever I was listening back. I was like, well, dang, Logan, you made him sound like he just doesn't care. And he just is like,
I'm just a
whatever.
candle in the wind.
Yeah, which I mean, you are that way on
Yeah,
things
no, I totally
that
am.
like with lunch, like I brought up, like you totally are just like, hey, if you can make it, awesome. If not,
Yeah.
that's totally fine. But then whenever you find something that Lance cares about, he's not overly opinionated, but he's going to like fervently chase after it until he gets it and then take it beyond that.
Okay, so since we're talking about Lance, he's not allowed to speak for just a minute. There's just a little bit of salt water coming out of my eyes, and I'm not really experienced with like what that is or what you call it or anything, but we're gonna move past it real quick. That was really great.
Are
No,
you crying?
I'm not familiar with the term, but Logan, that was amazing. Let me be a real jerk.
Go ahead.
And ask the flip side of that. Is it hard, Lance, for you to challenge people because of that mentality, like that lunch mentality of like, hey, if you make it, that's fine. But if you don't, like that's also fine.
I'm going to answer for him.
Oh, yeah. Again, you're not allowed to talk.
I'm trying to understand the rules of the game you're playing.
So, do you want to just answer it, Lance? It's you. I was just
I'm
saying
trying to
that
make
'cause
sure
you
I
couldn't
understand
talk.
the question. Like,
Do you find it hard to motivate people because, tell me if I'm wrong, do you find it hard to motivate people into, like, following you or believing what you believe because you respect, like, people's opinion and time so much?
yeah, in certain situations, for sure. I think that's it's so case by case. So like, you know, anybody who knows me knows that I love Kentucky basketball.
Yeah.
Like so much. So much. But I understand why someone else wouldn't.
Thank you.
You know what I'm saying? So like I would never lose. That's not the hill I'm gonna die on. You know, trying to convince somebody that they should also be a fan of the same sports team that I love makes no sense. The hill that I would die on really only is about Jesus. Like I'll go to great lengths to present the gospel in a way that would at least give someone the opportunity to ask questions and want to know more about it.
Right.
What I don't do ever is just be like, hey, you should feel this way or be this way because I am or I do. Like that doesn't exist in my personality at all. Some people it does. Some people are just like, oh, look, I'm right, and you should do this because I'm right.
Right.
I can't do that. But no, I do. But I understand. Like, it's like I look at life like it's. I see all the sides of the Rubik's cube. You know, like I get why somebody else would think this way about this thing, and why they would think this way about this thing, and then why I think the way I do about it. And I see all of those things like equally. So, I just kind of like, look, all I can do is present my side, and I welcome the conversation, but I don't think it's my job to like change someone's mind about something. I think it's my job to plant seeds and have conversation, and to make it like kind of applicable to now when this podcast is being released. Nike just launched this new campaign. Then they made Colin Kaepernick the face of it, and what is the slogan? It was like, believe in something, even if it means sacrificing everything.
Yeah.
People are all up in arms about this because we talked about this on the podcast about the kneeling for the national anthem and football games and all that stuff. I'm not debating one side or the other. I have no interest in presenting my opinion on social media. I think it's completely useless. Well, not completely useless. Like if you want to, fine. It's that's your thing. But like, I just did it. I just did it just now.
It didn't come off that way, which is why you're so beautiful.
Oh, thanks. But
I'm serious.
But I do have an opinion about that whole situation. But I'm not gonna go out of my way to force it down everybody's throats. I'm gonna wait for a moment where the opportunity makes sense to be had, and then I'll have it there. But I'm not gonna be angry or hostile about it.
Yeah.
Which is why you take things in stride, like the best I've seen.
And even when somebody does that to me or tries to do that to me, I can just slough it off because I'm just like, well, they don't understand that there's a better way to have this conversation. And maybe someday they will.
I have seen Lance receive some.
It's really good.
I've seen Lance receive some tough news over the years, just about whatever.
Yeah.
Like anything that could be super serious or like it sucks for right then.
Kentucky lost.
And
they do that sometimes. It's very, very difficult for me to.
Okay, I'm about to have to eat my words on this because what I was going to say was, like I've seen you receive some pretty tough news and you take that very well. Except for Kentucky losses. Being around Lance after a Kentucky loss is the one time that it's not fun to be around Lance. I'm not kidding.
Big bummer.
I have watched him receive just bad news. Only bad news. And I hate to be this candid, but it was better to be around you then than it was to be around you after they lose.
I'm only laughing because I know it's true.
That's incredible.
It's just that's the way I was raised, man. My whole family is like that with Kentucky. I mean, and over the last few years, I've actually enjoyed watching Kentucky football more. Which I know I never thought I'd say that. I'm in it. I actually know players on the team and everything.
Well, it helps
Yeah.
that you guys aren't as bad.
Yeah, we're on the up, so it's a good time for me to jump on the bandwagon.
Well,
but
Get them while they're
just
still down.
just makes me so sad when they lose.
Something we talked about in the early days of These Are Words was recording a podcast while Logan and I are with Lance while he's watching a UK basketball game.
We never did it.
We never did
We
it.
let a
And
whole
I think
season pass.
yeah, well, here's the thing. There's a new season starting. That's the beauty of sports.
Very, very soon.
Or so I'm told. That's the beauty of sports.
Yeah.
And I think we could totally do it with the intent of like psychoanalysis on the back
Yeah.
end.
I'm in.
Not
And now
not
that
just a
we are an
sports thing.
Enneagram podcast.
Yeah. we are.
So yeah, we'll for sure have to do that. That was funny.
That's great.
So this is our next to last one, right?
Yeah, from episode 27. I don't even remember what we call this episode. I could just go look, but we're not going to.
I'll go look.
And,
You can keep talking.
Okay, so I kind of captioned these so each of us would know like what clip is coming up, and we could just be thinking about them before the clip plays. So the caption here is Lance just wants us to be serious, and then Logan and Asher can troll ellipses or not.
And
The episode name is "It's All Fun and Games."
this is our first episode back after we took
A long
break whenever
Yeah,
I switched jobs, and then our recording time couldn't happen anymore.
Right. Okay, so this is from episode 27. Check it out if you like what you hear.
Here's the point of this story. Then after that, Asher brings up a different topic. He said, "How about we talk about denouncing hell?" And I said, "Crying, laughing emoji. That's gentle." And Logan said, "I
Now,
agree."
was that a joke?
Yeah, it was sarcasm, but I
Oh.
wouldn't mind talking about it. This would be fun. So Logan says, "I agree. Let's find something else that is better to come back on, like denouncing hell." And I said, "I'm okay with that as long as we include some sports talk." Again, you guys are my friends. I think we're talking seriously here. Asher, you sent an emoji of what looks like an
It's a-
animated photo of New York City in the
Pretty
night
sh-
sky.
I'm
It's
pretty
an
sure
emoji.
that's Van Gogh's Starry Night.
It's absolutely not.
Are you
it
sure?
definitely is because I've painted it before in middle school. It's terrible.
And then Asher suggested a couple more topics, such as climate change, is college education worth it, concealed carry, and then another conversation that would have been really hard to talk about.
I want to say it.
It doesn't matter. And then I said I have
I don't remember.
I said I have absolutely zero information on climate change to be able to speak about it with any sort of validity. LOL. I'm totally cool to talk about college education and concealed carry. Not sure about that last one. And then Logan said, "Lance, stop taking him so seriously."
Because he was obviously trolling.
I didn't know.
Okay, but we need to talk about something real quick. What if I'm living in the middle ground between could be serious, could be trolling? What is that called?
Horrible.
Because
Just horrible.
if you all had said, let's talk about it, I'm fine with that.
I do that all the time.
If you all think I'm trolling, that's funny.
Where I totally get it because like if I brought up a topic,
Right.
I don't care if we do or don't talk about it. I'm just dishing out ideas. So if you want to make me more funny, or you want to make me funnier, you want to make me more funnier, if you want to make me more funniest,
Getting worse.
Lance's face during all that. Then sure, I don't care.
Right.
Take me seriously and tell me yes or no. I still don't care. And I think that's where you're at.
I'm
Yeah.
trying to figure out what that has to do with this conversation. But
I'm
Lan-
saying that
or he brought up those topics being either way. I could be trolling you, but it's up to you if you want to make me that. Or if you say yes, I'm going to
That
also say yes.
see that's the paradox.
so much.
What if trolling is in the mind of the beholder?
Absolutely, it is.
I want this to be over
Because
so bad.
if you don't want to be trolled, you can stop me.
Yeah.
I can try, but
Shut
you-
me down.
You don't have to let me.
But if you want to talk
Not
serious,
if you don't know when you're being trolled.
But hey, if you want to talk serious, I'm here to talk serious.
Or are we?
It's
Anyways,
up to you.
Lance was so over it.
that was hard to listen to again. It was hard to be there in the first place. And just listening back to that.
It's so
Still
logical.
hate you guys.
It's so logical to me.
It's not. It's just mean. You guys are just mean. You're taking advantage of someone who doesn't know better. That's the definition of mean.
That's only partially true because, like,
It's still partially mean. You can call it whatever you want. Oh, man. Being
Asher.
taken advantage of is not funny. in any circumstance.
We weren't taking advantage of you.
You were. If you know that you're trolling me and you know that I don't know and you continue to do so, that is taking advantage of someone who doesn't know better.
It's a teaching moment. We're trying to teach you.
That's not the best way to teach me.
Well, it's the best way we know how.
That's not true. All you have to say is, hey, people might try and mess with you. Look out for that. And don't be the ones that do it.
Well, you said it. Sounds like you already know.
Yeah. Why are you?
I know now.
Sounds like we were successful.
You
Hey,
learned.
you guys.
I don't understand what the problem
I'd
is.
forgotten this happened, which means I'm back to full trust with both of you.
That's really funny. You blotted something out too.
I suppress all negative emotion, all memories. It's all gone down deep in there somewhere. And someday it's going to spring forth like a well of just unfortunate sadness. And when that day comes, we'll all be worse for it.
Great.
But until then, I trust you guys.
I think it's so funny because we knew we were on the same page, Asher and I.
Yeah.
And we will oftentimes text each other outside of the These Are Words like group text just to like preface the other one like, hey, I'm about to do this, be on board. We didn't do it that time because we just knew. And most of the time we do. But like if we're going to start a conversation to mess with Lance, which happens a lot, we'll let each other know from the beginning. And then we're both on board with it.
I feel like if I texted one of you separately and was like, hey, if I texted Asher and was like, hey, I'm going to troll Logan in this group text, which I wouldn't do anyways. But if I did, you would find a way to reverse troll me.
He would text,
Because you know that you could still get away with it.
he would text me, and then we would troll you back.
I text Logan and be like, hey, Lance is trying to troll you.
I know you would do it, and I know it would work.
Oh my god!
Which is why now that I've said that, I can't do it because I know it would happen. And
That's
we'd
so-
all,
You didn't
have
we'd
to
all
say-
be in on it.
You didn't have to say it. For it to be
I would
true.
have rather had said it.
Let me just say this. When this podcast started, in order of levels of friendship, there was Logan and Lance, highest level of friendship.
Yeah.
Then there was Lance and Asher, that's me, second highest level of friendship. And then Logan and I just didn't know each other as well as we do now.
We had known each other for a long time, but
Years and years, yeah.
Yeah, like since I was like in early middle school.
And Lance brought us together.
But we didn't really know each other like
You're welcome.
at all. But
Until-
now Asher and I are like close. And-
We text separately even when we're not trolling Lance too,
Yeah.
about sometimes serious issues.
Yeah. I remember
And-
there was a time that I was like going through like a lot of anxiety, and Asher was one of the first people I texted
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah. And I would,
well, look at
this
you
point,
guys.
So Lance,
Isn't that great?
It's about time for you to go.
and at this point,
Look
I would
what I've
probably, I would do the same with Logan because we think so much alike.
Yeah.
I can be like, hey, like, what would you do in this situation?
Right.
And I'm saying all that not to crap on Lance, but to empower you because you brought us together even closer.
Well, I'm happy. I'm happy for you guys. I really am.
I'm happy
it just
for
really
us too.
sucks for you sometimes. So
I
this last
take
one,
it all in stride. Just
that's-
push it all down.
this is actually a great segue.
Nothing
It
matters.
is.
Because how much Asher and I are alike from the first Enneagram podcast I was not there for. So we followed it up with a part 2, and then that same day we ended up doing a part 3 of just Asher and I. So Asher got to be a part of all 3 parts, but so it was Lance and Asher, and then myself, Lance and Asher, and then myself and Asher. And so we made a discovery about Enneagram Type 1s that Lance just found bewildering.
Yeah.
And then whenever we confirmed that it's completely true, and then even more severe than he probably ever thought,
Probably.
it was a lot for him to handle.
Yeah.
I have several thoughts about this, but I'll wait until we play the clip. if y'all-
Okay. And real quick before you play it, if you want to go back and listen to those, it's episodes 31, 32, and 33.
And they
So,
are really good. And if you have not taken the Enneagram test, either listen and then take it, or take it and then listen. Either way, it's not necessarily, because this isn't, our podcast is not this. It's not an informational podcast
Right.
about the Enneagram. It's just us talking about our types and how we see that in our life.
true. This is us taking kind of a pop culture thing, something that's getting really popular now, and putting it through our new lens of a podcast.
Yeah.
Which is sharing our own experiences. So here's a clip from episode 32.
So when Logan took the Enneagram test like today, and when he told me,
I took it today.
when he told me he was a type 1, the first question I asked him was, do you also have a voice in your head? Because that, out of all the things we talked about, that stuck out the most to me.
It's okay. Let me stop you for just a second, because it's so, I can't begin to explain to you how surprising it is that other people don't have a voice in their head that they're
hold on.
constantly dialoguing with.
Yes.
That's what I was going to say.
Okay.
Because he looked at me like I was the stupid person.
Right.
He was like, of course I have a voice in my head. I can't believe you don't.
That's it. It's a short clip. So
There's so much there.
yeah, Lance, I really want you to talk about it first.
Gosh, there's so many things. So I think the Enneagram like has shaped the way that I've lived the last several weeks of my life in a positive way. And so everybody that I've met, I talk about it, whether they know about it or not. And if they don't know about it, they sure do now. I'm like on a holy crusade of Enneagram. And but everybody that I've met, so since that conversation that is a type 1, I've immediately asked them, so there's a voice in your head? And they're like, yes. Like it's not a big deal. And I am just so fascinated by that by that very thing, because I don't have it. It's so foreign and bizarre to me that it's like I don't know, like something that you didn't know existed that you've seen for the first time, and now you just like are obsessed with it.
And it's funny you say that, because the flip side is true, I think, for Logan and I. The fact that anyone doesn't have it is like discovering that something doesn't exist that we know exists.
Yeah.
For
It's
us.
like-
worse.
It's like
That's worse. for
Maybe.
you.
Maybe.
That's
would-
so funny.
I can't, that is such an interesting way to put it, but I can't describe how it feels to know how real it is and then also know that you don't have it. I can't conceive what that's even like to not have it.
Sounds nice.
And absolutely. And like, as much, we kind of went back and forth on that podcast, like talking about like if it's a good thing or a bad thing or whatever. But honestly, like really and truly, I think I would rather not have it because of how miserable it makes me versus how much good it does for me.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it's like 10-1. It may it may even be 10-0.
Hold on to that thought though, because everything I've learned about the Enneagram is that your type is on a spectrum, and your understanding of your type is on a spectrum. So like, and I'm not saying you're like in a bad spot. I'm saying like wait to decide that when you can like honestly say to yourself that you've been on the healthiest possible side of the type 1 for any length of time, and then let me know.
Okay, so
But I'm just telling you right now.
But yeah,
that there is
And that's
no
valid.
way that voice is going to do the reverse. The amount of bad it does for me, there's no way it does the exact opposite. to the amount
That's
of good.
valid, because that's based on your current experience.
but as far as like, we'll call it Enneagram theology to upset the Baptists. Do you feel
What fun.
like, yeah, I know. And hell might be real, who knows? So like,
Oh my gosh.
it might not be what you think it is. So do you think that an Enneagram 1 that feels that way about the voice is, let me just define voice real quick. It's the harshest possible version of our, I guess, psyche.
Yeah.
That is
Think of-
telling us, hey, you could do, like you did it'll never say you did a good job. It'll always say you could have done better.
It's only ever mean.
And it will never say sit and relax for a while. It will say you need to do something.
Actually, I disagree. I think it can be crippling to the point that it says there's no way you can do good enough
Ooh.
or that you can even do it. So
just do
why
nothing.
not just do nothing?
Okay, that is a big part of
And
the
that
one.
is,
Yeah.
I think that is when a 1 is at his or hers absolute worst.
Yeah. When it's so crippling that it's like, I mean, you may
Why
as well
would
not
you?
even try.
It's hopeless.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Gosh.
Right.
I'm envious of the 9, Lance. I wish I could be that way to not worry and to not be deprecating in literally every facet of my life.
There's pros and cons to everything, though. Like all 9 of the types on the Enneagram have pros and cons. Because
And I hate to be dramatic, but I honestly think that the 1 has it the worst. Like I think that the 1, okay, I shouldn't say it that way. The 1 at its worst, and it obviously like I identify it with it the most, so I'm like sensitive to it, but the 1 at their worst seems to be the most unhealthy type of person. Just because the way that we deal with it is like there's no help. There's no help from anyone until we decide it, because we know that no one knows better. And even if they do, we don't care. Does that make sense? What I'm saying?
yeah, I agree.
And so, like, whenever that voice becomes powerful enough, and also what's awesome about the 1 is we are always powerful enough, and we know it, to overcome it. But it just takes
Time.
a ton of time.
Yeah. It takes sitting in the melancholy, because again, the 1 disintegrates to the 4, which is melancholy and no one understands me, and a lot of irrational thought and behavior.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of time to get back to rational thought and behavior for me.
Oh, absolutely.
Sure.
And it takes for me. I mean, even like just a couple nights ago, I saw Lance and like told him some stuff that I just was kind of worried about, and it took him saying what I already knew to be true for it to become debunked.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Like the outside source can be such a huge help. So if you know a 1, make
Talk
sure you ask
to
them a
them.
few questions.
Yeah. Were you about to ask me something a second ago?
I don't think so.
Okay. I wasn't sure.
Yeah, the voice is like, on a good day, the voice isn't there as much. But I mean, it's just always there. Like it just shows up in subtle ways, like on good days where it's like, and it makes it sound insane. Like I hate to use this terminology. It makes it sound actually insane, but like say like it's a good day. There's nothing really to like be had. And then like you're working on something and then like you end up getting frustrated with yourself and not like mad, but like for me, for example, I could be having a great day working on like a design and then I'll just get stuck on this design and be unproductive. And because I'm like, it's not good enough. It's not good enough. It's not good enough. And then I'll be like, I've got to learn more because I'm never going to get where I want to get if I stay right here.
Yeah.
Which some people would be like, that's awesome because it's so motivating and you're never going to stop. And like, that makes you a great like competitor or whatever. And I get that. And I think that that's what makes ones very good at like competing or with like driving themselves forward and like never settling, but it's exhausting.
Well, yeah. And I'll piggyback on that to the thought behind it's not good enough, like a product or a process or something I'm physically doing or creating. can quickly translate to me to you're not
I'm
good
not good
enough.
enough.
Yeah, like it gets personal.
Yeah. And actually, I shouldn't even say I'm. It is always your.
You're not
The
good
voice is never
Yeah.
we. It's always you.
enough. Yeah. It's a devil.
Oh, yeah.
So the more I've thought about this the last several weeks, hopefully this gives you guys some kind of satisfaction, but my brain, the way it works, makes me very tired at the end of the day.
Really?
In a way that I think you can identify with. So, but for different reasons, but my brain makes me tired. And that's the best way that I can understand what you're saying about the voice drowning out your own rational thought. At the end of the day, you have to sit down and just be like, oof. You know, like that. Is that something you can identify with, either of you?
It is,
Yeah.
but I don't always do the oof. Sometimes it just keeps going.
Okay. I see. I think that's about as far as I can get with empathizing
Right.
with what you guys are saying, because my brain all day is constantly making decisions to make sure that I look the best to everyone that's around me.
Mhm.
And then when I get to the end of the day, I'll lay down in bed and I'm just like, man,
Do you stop thinking about it?
I think so. The best way that I can describe that feeling is, if anybody who's honest with themselves can probably identify with this. And I do this, like I'm being completely transparent and honest, which I've just now decided is now a core value of our podcast.
Nice.
Yeah. Like walking around all day sucking in your stomach because you're uncomfortable with the way it looks is the way that I feel about my brain when I get to the end of a day. I feel like I've been presenting it in a way that I think is presentable to other people, because I care more about what they think about me than what I care about how I think about myself. And if I'm not careful, that can turn me into no one. I am nobody.
I am
I
anyone. I want you to tell me if you agree with this, Asher. But using that same analogy, I would say that I feel as though, like with the stomach, it is protruding to like the grossest manner, and everybody knows it. So there's no hiding it. So I've just got to make it better because I can't fake it. Like I've just got to make it better, or maybe they already think I'm like good. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well,
So-
it does to me. I don't know if it does to Lance.
I'm sorry I missed it. I had
No, it's fine.
I had
It's
to
fine.
reply to a text.
Yeah.
Pretty much what I was saying was like it, instead of being like I've got to present this in a way that everybody will think I'm good, like it's more of everybody already knows that it's messed up.
Oh, okay.
So I've got to prove them wrong. And
Oh,
that may
that's so
take time.
interesting.
That's
Because
part of it.
I just
yeah.
I don't see people that way. I don't see you and assume that you've got it messed up and you're trying to figure it out.
Yeah, I think
Well,
proving that they're
Yeah.
improving myself, and improving the way that they think about it too.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
oh, there's one other thing I forgot.
I want to
but
add a
yeah.
caveat to what I just said.
No, go ahead.
What I meant was more I don't look at people and see or assume that what they think about themselves is bad. I look at everyone and I assume that we all are kind of trying to become aware of what we don't like about ourselves, and hopefully are on an upward journey of how to improve those things. Does that
Sure.
make more sense?
Yeah.
Hopefully that clarifies what I said. I think about the things that I don't like about myself, and I think everyone does that to an extent. But what I hopefully, in a perfect world, obviously we'd all be learning how to identify and improve those things, but in a way that's healthy, not in a way that's performance mandated. Like we have to be a certain way to be good or to be worthy. Or whatever, whatever that word is for you. Like I think
Yeah.
that we all are aware of the things we don't like about ourselves, and there's a healthy way to improve those things, and then the unhealthy way is to dwell on those things and just writhe in how much we hate ourselves. That's not good.
Lance, I completely agree with you. Tough to hear, but I agree with you.
Okay.
I mean, it's good advice. It's just like hard to apply.
Sure.
So,
sure.
I think that's going to wrap it up for this episode. This is the start of season 2, where we took a look back at everything that we did in season 1 and some of our favorite highlights from that season. And we're going to continue this conversation a little bit with a future podcast where we're going to talk about some of our favorite songs. And it's really going to play into some of the stuff that we talked about here at the end. So stay tuned for that. And do y'all have any closing thoughts as we're starting this new season?
I mean, my closing thought would just be thank you to everyone who's listened. And even if you don't hear this episode, if you did listen to a past one, then I thank you as well. This has been super fun for us. And I know a handful of people who've really enjoyed the podcast and still do. And every time I see them, it's like, dude, I listened to your podcast today, which is a really weird sentence that I'm not used to yet. But I really enjoy it when they say it. So yeah, if you hear this and you, even if this is your first episode or you've listened to all, 38, 37.
There's actually a couple more because we did some like extras and stuff.
Yeah. Whatever. If you've been around for the whole time, then thanks. And this has been a blast, and cheers to the future.
Absolutely. Cheers to simpler times.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that it's been a ton of fun. And like I said, from the beginning, the past year has been such a learning experience for all of us.
Yeah.
Of like what
yeah.
like what we were even doing to begin with. And
Right.
then also like how to do it. And then what we wanted to do within it. And I think we've got a groove now. And I mean, it's been a ton of fun. And I think I've said this in podcasts before, like, even if we'd never published any of these, I would still do this every week.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, I mean, like Lance said, thanks. Please tell your friends, tell your family, give it a listen.
Absolutely. Check us out on Apple Podcasts and give us a review, especially for the beginning of season 2.
Yeah, and if we missed any of your favorite moments from this first season, please let us know what those moments were. We'd love to listen back and reminisce on the hilarity. And also, some exciting news coming up. We are finalizing the details of our first sponsor of a business here in town. I guess I won't say the name yet. Just to wait. Let's just wait and announce it when it's for real. But we will have a sponsorship, which is really, really exciting. A local business that we love and love to support has decided to support us, which is just wonderful. And if you or anyone that you know would potentially be interested in sponsoring this podcast, then let us know. We want to be actively involved with our community, and we would love nothing more than to have a mutually beneficial partnership of any sort. So let us know. And boys, anything else?
Here's a season 2.
Cheers to season 2.
'Tis the season. Lindsay and I already have one of our Christmas trees up. So
Did you ever take it down?
we did, yeah. And we have
Okay.
2 now instead of just 1.
That's good. So maybe 10 months from now, you'll be taking down those 2 trees.
Possibly. Who's to say?
Who's to say?
Hey, actually, just one last thing. I want to thank the band Night Colors for the use of our Season 2 theme song called Magazines. You can hear it right now. That's from their album called How the Night Began. You can check that out on Bandcamp, which the link for that is, where is it? nightcolorsmusic.bandcamp.com. You can buy it there or on iTunes. You can also check it out on Spotify. Follow them on Instagram. That's at Night Colors Music. You can check them out on Facebook and Twitter as well, or at their website, nightcolorsmusic.com. All right, well, it's a wrap for the first episode of season 2, and we'll see you next week.